This is Block 11, Reagan's Revolution, Part 1, Modern American Conservatism, with the section starting William F. Buckley. William F. Buckley is there on the left. You can see him. That's kind of his trademark pose. He had a television show for many, many years. He was educated at Yale. He was a legacy. His father had gone to Yale. He went to Yale. But he certainly made his own way. He burst onto the scene of kind of American consciousness in 1951 when he was about 23 years old, and he wrote a book called God and Man at Yale, in which, you know, the young man accused his alma mater of abandoning its classic mission to educate students kind of in the sight of God. The book made him a celebrity in certain quarters and infamous in other quarters. That, you know, how dare some 23-year-old kid, you know, go and criticize the entire educational mission of Yale University. But he had a way with a pen. He was an incredibly intelligent guy, a good writer. And a few years after that, still in his 20s, he founded a magazine called National Review, which purported to stand athwart history yelling, "Stop." And why did William F. Buckley feel that he had to stand athwart history yelling "Stop"? He thought that history, kind of with a capital H, a Marxist view of history, was moving way too fast and was moving in a direction that he didn't like, a statist direction, a socialist direction, direction away from the values of the American founding, away from the values of the Catholic Church, of which he was a strong proponent of. And he thought that history was like a train speeding down the rails, and it was going to be his job to stop it. And he is the founder, the intellectual founder of the modern American conservative movement, which had kind of been exhausted by the time he was on the scene in the 1950s. That conservatism in general had been discredited by the progressive movement, had been discredited by Keynesianism, isolationism, as, you know, traditionally conservative, as conservatism was traditionally understood in the United States, had been discredited. And largely through Buckley's force of personality and his wit and his intelligence, he updated, revitalized, and modernized the modern American conservative movement, largely through his magazine. He tied together the major strands of American conservatism, which were anti-communism, a rejection of the encroaching power of the state, a rejection of increasing government power, and also in support of traditional religion. Buckley kind of united all of those disparate strands into one coherent intellectual movement. Another important thing that Buckley did was he removed from the conservative movement two groups that were kind of on the extreme fringe of conservative thought. He read out the followers of Ayn Rand, known as objectivists, who are kind of extreme atheistic libertarians. If you want to read a darn good novel, go read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. It's one of the fattest books you'll ever read. Very popular among high school and college students, but certainly an extremist view of the world. Buckley said, look, American conservatism is not going to include Ayn Rand and her followers, and it was not going to include the followers of John Birch, who is an extremist anti-communist group. He said, if we want to be, Buckley said, if we want to be kind of accepted into the American mainstream, we've got to not allow kind of extremists like Ayn Rand and John Birch in the movement. And that went a long way towards making American conservatism somewhat respectable again. And Buckley served first to make conservatism respectable, and then through his intelligence a force. The first time you really saw political hay based on Buckley's movement on the national level was the candidacy in 1964 of Barry Goldwater, who we have seen in Block 9. Defense of extremism in defense of liberty is no vice. Moderation in pursuit of justice is no virtue. Goldwater in 1964 ran on a modern conservative platform of lower taxes, less government intervention in society, strong anti-communism. He ran against some of the excesses of the New Deal, And in 1964, Goldwater got destroyed by Lyndon Johnson. But it was a clarion call that Goldwater said that he did not want the Republican Party merely to be a slightly more conservative echo of the Democratic Party. If you remember his slogan, "A choice, not an echo." And in the next 16 years, the fight would be on between kind of your traditional establishment Republicans and the Goldwaterite Republicans. And that battle for the soul of the Republican Party would continue for a decade and a half. The so-called, the Rockefeller Republicans of the East versus the Buckleyite, Goldwaterite Republicans of the West. The more liberal establishment Republicans versus this new upswing in conservative Republicans.